Hello. Not sure what to work on today, but maybe I will keep on fixing stuff on the to-do list. So let's fix this thing here. This is the task. Builder improve. So every building in the game has a level, which is described as a letter. And when a new building is being constructed, the outcome of the newly constructed building will be randomly calculated, or not. There's a random part to the calculation, but it's also determined by the level of the involved builders. So let's show that quickly. We have a builder here in this village. It's a builder level B. Like the skills of the villagers also use the same letter-based skill system. So this builder is a level B builder, and the workplace of the builder is a level D workplace. So those both levels get taken into consideration when we create a new building. Let's place a small farm. So the builder is starting to construct it. Let's fast forward a bit. And now down here we can see the possible outcome, which is right now unknown, but as soon as all the construction materials have been moved to the construction site, then the builder will start hammering. So that's, oh, I know where the bug is, or where at least one bug is. What did I just click? Guest, I think. Guest arrived, or guest. Like you just saw like the map move to some random location. Because the game tried to focus a chunk. But it seems that I've sent the game to a location that is not yet discovered. But I have to find out where I do that. Like I think when clicking something here. Ah. So somehow I can click the notifications. Ah, that's why I just make every notification clickable, but only those should be. So this should actually be here inside of this thing, and now the thing is solved, I think. I hope. Yeah, now this is not happening anymore. So that's why the game tried to focus tile -1, which is the default not invalid location. I set these two variables to before putting the actual ones from the message I just clicked. Like up here a message appears, and when I click it, this function is called, and only some of the message types allow for focusing the location of the message, of the origin of the message. But since this was outside of the switch statement, it was triggered for every message type, and then the default variables were used, and then the game was focusing the -1 location, which is invalid because the game starts somewhere at chunk 100, and chunk position and tile position is not the same. Like every chunk consists of 32 by 32 tiles, so actually the tile on this chunk, the first tile on the lower left, should be something like 100 times 32, so 32,000. Let's again place the farm. Am I in debug mode? Yeah, I think so. No, I'm not. So again, as soon as the builder starts constructing, oh, we missed it, it was fast forward. But now this outcome, like this constructed building, also has the type D, because let's do it again. Okay, now we don't have enough resources for the construction, so I need to cheat again. The workers bring the resources, and as soon as the construct phase of the is starting, then we can see the possible outcome. So 95% it's going to be a D building and 5% a C, and these percentages of course change depending on the skill of the involved builder and the skill of the workplace of the builder. So those two put into the calculation, and since an arbitrary number of builders can work on a single construction site, they are all of these skill values will be added together, and a mean is calculated, and then the outcome is calculated. And then there's also another system in the game, or another feature that's working with the buildings and their levels. We have this improve menu, which it says it's not researched yet, so I have to unlock it by cheating. This one, improve buildings. If I now employ a builder here, let's take the old one and just move the workplace to this location. So this guy is still a builder, but now working at this building. Now we can enter this improve menu, and then we should select the builder we want to improve, like who we want to use for the improvement, because now the level is also important, and this action consumes improvement kits, and we right now don't have any, as it says no kits stored. Let's cheat some improvement kits. Now we do have some, and now we see a list of all the possible improvement targets, and it's also showing from what level to which we will improve if we select that one. And some of them cannot be improved because our builder is level C. No, he's level B, but his workplace is level D. And the mean from that is level D, I think. Oh no, level C. So he's only able to upgrade to level C. And also upgrade his own workplace. And the improvement has been scheduled. And now the builder is busy. And now he's working on the improvement. And this is the task I was just looking at in code. This is this task. He's currently doing this task. And I have to fix this because this task may be aborted, but I'm not sure if it will ever be aborted in the game, because this abort stuff, like this could only happen in the very rare case when the builder is somewhere else on the map and he's trying to walk to this position to do the improvement, and if that pathfind to this position fails, then this abort method will be called to clean up all the stuff we initialized when we plan to do this task. And right now, if the game ever aborts this task, the improvement kits will be lost, because here I said like refunded the kits when aborting. So since after aborting the task, the building will never be upgraded, like at least not in that task. We should get back the kits, improvement kits. And we should also free the entry in the schedule, because here the builder looks into this schedule for improvements, and if his ID is inside of the schedule, he will start the improvement task, and when he's finished inside the update, when the timer improvement is over, we remove the entry, but then the improvement kits have already been consumed. So wait, when do I actually take the improvement kits? I guess when I plan the improvement in the... This is the menu which shows the list of improvable targets. And when we press one of the targets, so here we consume the improvement kits. And here I also say like they will be refunded if the task gets aborted. But that's actually not the case yet. I have to implement that first. But here we take the items. And then we reload. So let's see. Could also happen that the builder, well, that's another thing I will solve later. That's this one here. So one thing after another. So let's first refund the kids. For that I need to find out the grade. So it's that grade plus 1, or that 1 plus 1, and we refund that. First we put it into the workplace. Else we so those are refunded now. And the entry is removed. So now there is actually the case that this abort method may be called if we try to improve and it doesn't. If the building is marked for removal during the improvement, we don't improve it and abort the task, which will refund kids. And free the entry. Same here, if the building is like if this removal status is 0, it's not marked for removal, but if it's above 0, like that, two other values 1 and 2, but both of those mean that the building is marked for removal. So we actually catch that and abort this task. So we can actually test this, the abortion code, because we can on purpose like mark the building for removal during the improvement, and then the improvement will fail. So let's do that. So we still have the builder here. No, we don't. Let's employ. Now there's a builder. We need improvement kits again. Let's give him 1. So 1 improvement kit is needed. Like here we also see the number of needed improvement kits. If we would, like, this is always the same number, then the level, like D in code is number 0 and C in code is 1. So going from D to C costs 1, going from C to B costs 2, and so on, until going from S to X costs 5. So let's schedule the market. So now the improvement kit in the workplace is taken away. The guy is starting to improve the thing. And it's taking, I don't know, 15 seconds, I think, something around that. And if I now mark this building for removal, which is also visible in the map view by showing this icon, removal icon here, the worker will still continue to do his task, because he will only notice at the end of the task. Well, now he's starting to deconstruct the market because it's marked for removal. And we can also stop that. But we got back the improvement kit, and that's what I wanted to test. And the entry in the improvement schedule is also being cleared, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to schedule another one, because I checked that. Like, you can only schedule one at a time. So if there isn't one in the schedule, and we can do another one, that's what I wanted to achieve. Okay, that's nice. And I can add a notification, so the player will be notified that the building improvement has been stopped. And we can even tell the reason, that because the only reason can actually be that the building is marked for removal. The pathfind fail could still happen, like the builder could theoretically not find the building he has to improve, but this never happens because the map is mostly traversable, so pathfinding fails never happen actually in the game. Only like maybe very rare cases. I would have to construct something very like this is maybe but I think this corner can be traversed. So if I imagine that this is a chunk that's containing animals, and I don't remember how I spawn the animals on the chunk, but let's say an animal spawns here and tries to walk somewhere else, that pathfind could fail, and that's one of the only rare pathfinds that can fail. The rest of the map is mostly traversable, so, and the locations where the villages are being built by the player are also mostly traversable, and the player cannot place something. The player is not able to place walls, so the player is not able to manipulate the walkability of the map. That means inside of player villages, path finds will always work. So I don't have to. It would be a very, very rare case. Like even if the player, the player of course is able to decide to make a village here. Even then, if the player then wants to place a house here, right now I don't do a path find from the village to this location. So theoretically, like as I said, this location is still. We can test this. We can send the squads to any location on the map. Let's test this with a squad. So this squad only has one member, and right now he's doing some animal observations. But as soon as he's finished with that, he will be active in his squad and follow our orders. Like he also changed the outfit to squad outfit. We can also change it to another color to distinguish between multiple squads, and we can control squads more actively. And this menu, when I click somewhere, a pathfinder is being performed, and down there it says if the location is accessible, and this one seems to be not accessible. So this one is also not, because but if I open up more of the world, now a path is there. And now this can be accessed. But this one cannot. But theoretically the player could tell the game to place a building here. And then whenever somebody tries to walk to that building, that pathfind will fail and their task will be aborted. But that's very rare. Let's see, I want to add this improvement stop notification, and for that I need a new icon for the notification. So let me quickly start up a sprite. So those are the notification icons, and I need one in the village part. So now I have the icon and then need text. So here I'm not naming the reason of the stop of improvement, but at least the player now knows, and they will maybe notice. I could say here like improvement no, let's just stay with this text and the player should notice. Wait, can I technically enter the menu of this building? I think I cannot. Maybe there's one frame where I can click. Okay, now we got the notification. I could make this clickable. Wait, if I use the worker position, it could be not on the workplace. Like, it will most likely be on the workplace, but maybe it's not. So let me get a... First, let's use the worker position, but if we have a structure, let's update it to that position. and then put that location into the notification, and then it is clickable. So let's test it again. Let me save before I start it, so I don't have to do this again. So again, the market scheduled. There isn't a, like sometimes when I start important tasks, I also send a message that this task has been planned, like the prospect. Or if I start to dig a tunnel between two villages. But sometimes I don't do that. It depends. So the guy now improves it, and I stop it, and as soon as he's done, he will stop, and then he will start to if I click this, it will focus the building. So if we are somewhere on the map doing something else in another village or somewhere else in the game, and we can go to the location immediately. But maybe so I have to, one day when I start working again on dungeons in the game, and those can be entered and there's a whole gameplay inside of the dungeons. As soon as I work on that again, I have to make my mind about how to solve the issue when we are in a dungeon, and in dungeons we also see these notifications, also the ones for the overworld. So that's one of the reasons why I implement the notifications, so we don't forget the overworld while playing the dungeon gameplay. So let's say we are in dungeon, and then this notification appears, then we can click it inside of the dungeon, but right now only the map view is focusing then this building, but the game will stay in dungeon mode, and we actually visually it doesn't change only. And then if we go back to the overworld from the dungeon, I think it right now focuses the dungeon entrance, so we don't even notice that the map has been moved in the first place. So I have to find out how to solve this. So from this location I have to somehow, like here I click this, and that's the manager class which manages all the menus. So I have to somehow from here maybe send something to the dungeon menus that will notify them that we should go back to the overworld. And I'm not sure if that's possible all the time in the dungeon, because there's also stuff happening in dungeons, and I'm not sure if I want to pause that. So maybe this has to be suppressed depending on what situation we are in the dungeon. But that's a future problem. Today I have other problems to solve. So, but this one has been solved. Then I told myself to test the saving and loading of this menu. I guess I didn't do that. So when we start this task, remove building, wait, when we load, we don't know if we like this could crash after loading actually. After loading, like this constructor is called when the game is running and we start a task, and this one is called when we load from file and start a task, and we load data from this thing here. But we load the ID of the construction we are removing, but in the other constructor I'm doing this whole other stuff, like I'm looking for the correct building and I claim for removal. I don't have to do that again after loading because I already did that beforehand. And the removal claiming, that's saved inside of the building. I hope. Let's, he already solved that yesterday. And when we load, yeah, we load the removal status and we save it. Yeah, we load and save the removal status in the building. So I don't have to call this method again in this and that's what I wrote here. And the structures, like this task works on buildings and structures, and I do the distinction between those two because they're a bit different in the game and they are not part of a class hierarchy, so they are not children of a class, because I don't like to do that as much. So I just solved the two cases that can occur, and if the number, like this ID I put in, is below 0, I will treat it as a structure ID and I will just make it positive again, because all IDs are actually positive, but making it negative tells me that it's from a structure, and if it's positive in the first place, it's from a building. But the problem here is this will probably crash, because when the builder is doing this task, the builder will execute this code every frame, and this cannot be resolved. Like this will throw a null pointer exception because we didn't initialize this when we load. Like during the game it will be fine, but if I save in the exact moment this task is being performed, then the game will crash after loading. So let's test this. We have a builder here. We tell this building to be removed. The builder will start to do that. Now I save and then load, and then the game crashes as I expected. And the location of crashing is also the exact one I expected. It's that location. So that means I have to do this initialization. The same I do here, I have to do in the other one. But only this part I don't have to call. And it's actually not I could call it, but it wouldn't make a difference, because it can only be called once effectively. Like if I call this again, it will only claim the building if the remove status is 1, but then it will put it to 2, so it cannot be this will not be triggered again, this branch. And then we will return false, but we don't use the return value of this call, so it wouldn't make a difference. We could leave this in, but I'm going to remove it since I wrote here that I do not claim it again. It's being claimed, and after loading it's still claimed because we saved that information. But I put wait, do I save this correctly? I don't in this constructor. So that's another possible bug. I'm quite certain this is a bug. So here I load it from file, and here I save it in the field. Inside of the update, I don't use it again, because then I use those two, this one, and here I know which one to use by using this boolean. And we can also abort this function. Then this removal status is being put back. So here every frame we check if the building should still be removed. And if it's 0, it should not be removed anymore, because we can stop the removement. And then we will call abort, and that will, well, that's actually redundant since the building is already, so the value is back to 0, and this call tries to make it back to 1. But that's another yeah, it's still working. I think that's not a problem. But these two should solve the crash. Now I should be able to load the save file again. So this will actually abort. Ah, I see, I put the wrong ID here. If I now tell this remove, we'll start it, I save, I load, and he stopped again. Default value is 0. So that's the problem with the, I use the positive and the negative space of the variable. Because then I cannot use a low number value like -1. Normally I use -1 for that. But here I cannot. So maybe I have to go with something very big, which the player will never reach. So this somehow fails still. So let me look into this in debug mode. When does this fail? So somehow the building is not saving correctly. Let's test this in a new save file, because then I can place less buildings. Oh no. But in debug mode. So now first I save, then I delete the old one. I don't need that anymore. Now the guy removes and I save doing that. And now I look at the file. So the removal status is 2 in this building. But after loading, the builder stops. So we load the correct ID here, and the building also saves the correct removal status. Let's look at it in the debugging. That's the wrong building. That's the correct one. Okay, somehow this thing does not save the removal status. It seems like here it seems like it does. Ah, wait. It's a typo. That's funny. Because normally I check that I use the same name for the field when loading and saving, but it seems that I didn't do that in this case. So it's basically a typo. So when I now load, I still load invalid data, but we use default values. So it's being set to 0. And then that building will, okay, no, it's, no, it inside, no, when we saved with the correct name. So in the file it was the correct name, but before the typo was fixed, we tried to load with the wrong name. But now that I changed the code, it now also loaded the correct variable name, and now the construction process is loaded correctly. So now he finishes, and then the building is gone. Some of the resources of the building will be refunded. I don't have a notification for that yet. But I do, but I don't show a long version of that. Building deconstructed. Okay. So that has been fixed, which is nice. So I can remove this test. Now we tested it and fixed the bugs. So let's find the next one to fix. So that's maybe a bit annoying because I want to move this task, or no, I want to make this task use the new item transfer system. That's only for the sake of completeness. So all the tasks that deal with items being moved from or to buildings use the new system I implemented a few months ago. But actually I don't have to do that. The game still works perfectly fine. It's just not using the system. It's doing its own thing here, and it's working. So this task is very old actually. This is from 2016. And this never broke or failed. So I don't have to do that. So maybe I will not do that. I will say I could change, but I won't. Because it would take half an hour, or maybe a whole hour, depending on how. Because the new item transfer system is quite generic, so it tries to be very generic with the different types of item transfers. That means like it consists of multiple switch statements, and those are hard to read after some time. As you can see, like I have to do multiple implementations, and I don't want to do that right now, so I won't. Like the only downside to not add it to the new system is that the new item transfer system displays item animations. Like if I unpause, you will see that these guys will throw the items. Like a small movement animation will be played. See how the items fly into the building? And that's done generically using the new transfer system. That's one of the reasons why I implemented it. The other reason was to have all the item transfer stuff in one place, so I only have to fix all the bugs in that one place and not. It used to be like that every task that did it on their own, and that means if I found a bug somewhere, I had to look at every other location if there's also a similar bug. And now that it's centralized, I can only make sure I have like one a bit more complicated location of code, and I have to keep that bug free versus multiple less complicated locations in code. So you could argue for both of the versions, but I decided to go for the other one because I was going to do a rewrite anyways, because I wanted to implement the animations to every item transfer. So I had to touch every location anyways, so that I used that reason to make a new system. It paid off because now the system is much more robust and looks and works the same for every item transfer. Like almost every, only this one I think I missed, but I will leave it like it is right now. This one sometimes crashes, it seems, because it failed to load this laced item instance, which is an item in the map. Like if there is an item in a building, it's not using any instances of Java. So the item inside of buildings are just saved inside of data structures, but the ones on the map need to be rendered. So those use objects or instances of objects. So that also means if a hauler walks to that instance, he will say, like, and I save the task, then I need to save the ID of that instance and then load it. And that seems to fail sometimes. But it's happening very rarely. And this is also not using the item transfer system, at least not when dealing with the placed item instance, then it's not. But as soon as the guy picks up the item and decides where to bring it, then the item transfer system is used. As you can see here, this is creating a new item transfer. So this is involving the whole item transfer system. So I need to think about how this could fail. So this crashed multiple times in August and in June. So 2 times in 1 year. Like, as far as I remember, I always wrote it into the class when it crashes. And here I also know that there's a possible bug if the pathfind fails somehow, which is also quite rare. Then I deal with that. Then I tell the placed item that it's out of range and it will not be tried to be picked up again for some time. After some time, the placed item will change back its state to, like, if it's being put to out of range, then it will itself try to find a building. But it's doing that every frame. I don't like that. But only one item per frame. So that's okay. We do this only once per frame, regardless of how many items we have. Like, it's taking more time to call it on all items if we have more, but it's not like it's doing it thousands of times if we have thousands of items on the floor. Like, that's possible if the player decides to make every building restricted of having certain items, then they will be thrown on the floor and will be rendered as placed item instances, and then they will call this code all the time, but only once per like only one item per frame is calling this, and then the next, and then the next. So if we have one item on the floor, the same item is calling this every frame, but as soon as we have multiple, then it's iterating the index or the list entry. Yeah, that's part of the code I really hate to work on, because there are some very rare bugs that can happen here, and they are hard to reproduce, or at least they are hard. It's hard to find a reproduction for them. As soon as you find that, it's not hard anymore, but you have to find it in the first place. So I should experiment with this, with these items, and find the crashes, so they will not happen after I release the game, to make sure all the loading and saving is robust and all the edge cases are being handled. So that's what I'm going to do, but I think before that I will do a small break, so be right back. Okay, let's continue. Let's try to break this somehow and then fix it. Actually, I try to catch if it's not able to find the item after loading, then I just stop this method. But somehow it still crashed. Maybe if I load it during the animation. That's maybe the case, I think. Because when we initialize, this is called as soon as the task is started. I could use T for that. Okay. Let's see. If I press T, I spawn an item. How do I animate this pickup if I don't do it in the task, because task cannot render something? It has to happen in the villager or in the placed item. It's not rendered in the placed item. So where do I do that? Wait, I guess when I update, picking up. If the guy picking up the item is a hauler, then he's able to pick another item, because the if he has a wheelbarrow. So now I have a hauler. Using a wheelbarrow. But it's random if he picks up the item. But as you can see, like, he's moving 3 logs while the other ones only move 1. As long as there is another one. He's only able to pick up the same item multiple times. But that still makes him very useful. As you can see. But that's this code. If he has a wheelbarrow, then we look for another same item and then also pick that. So just the same task is called again. But we keep in mind that we already picked one. But we do this animation here somehow. I trigger the animation here in the initialize method. So that's where it happens. And then I remove the item from the map. That also means I could, for debugging reasons, make the time that pick up, like this timer is a delay, which is the same time that the animation is taking. So the guy waits for the animation to finish and then walks to the next item or to the place where he has to put the item. So now I made that time on purpose to 5 seconds. The animation will still play in the same short time. I don't know how many milliseconds it is, maybe 200 milliseconds or 300. It doesn't matter because now the guy will still wait 5 seconds until he does something else. That gives me time to save the game. See, they now wait for 5 seconds doing nothing and then they walk away. So that gives me time to save the game and see what happens. If I now load, it should crash. And it doesn't, it just stops. And the item is lost, which is also bad. I don't want items to be lost in the game. So that proved that there was a bug. Just the time was, the frame in which we could trigger it was much smaller, but it still can happen. And if the game is like, in the early game maybe not many item pickups happen, but later in game if everything is going on the map, like rocks being broken, trees being cut off or cut down, many item pickups can happen. Farms don't do the item dropping anymore, but later in game it's not as rare anymore that this is happening. So let's look at that when we load after saving, doing a pickup. Let's see what happens. So we saved an ID and we try to find the item in the map by that ID. But the list of items is empty. That's because when we started picking it up, we removed it from the list of items. That's how it should be. But that also means after loading, we cannot retrieve it if we are in the exact moment of picking it up. and then I abort the whole thing, or I don't even start the task, but then the item is lost. So that can be solved by saying okay, we set this to true, but right now we don't save this boolean, so we should do that. So now I load it, and then if the PC is null, but so the task will still not be started in the rare case that the placed item is not there, but it should be. So this is probably redundant. And then the init is called, and this let's think, because this is called every time we load. But we don't, in some case the PC will be null and we don't have to call all of this. And maybe I want to skip the animation. Oh, this could also crash. So I should not rely on the PC to be non-null. That's not very important actually, is it? Okay, the rest is safe. So this should hopefully recover the item, even if the instance is not there anymore. But if we try to pick it up before and then somehow the thing gets aborted, it should drop it again. Okay, let's test it now. Okay, still in the animation, and then after. Okay, now he still has it. But this is only since I changed this to be a long animation. So now I have to save very quickly. I cannot even save so quickly. No, I didn't hit it. But it's still, now it's not possible anymore to crash. At least. And what's when we don't, when we are not able to pick the item? I also put in a code that prevents items being lost on the map because it tries to find a valid position, but that's only happening if it's put on a non-walkable tile. Then it's trying to find the next walkable position. But if it somehow gets into a place that is not reachable, then the pathfinds will fail. That's also very rare, but maybe let's test it. I've tested that before. I think but that solved 2 items on the to-do list. That's nice. Okay, here I wanted to tell the notification the reason why the prospect failed. Maybe I will not do that. And here I also want to do an animation, but maybe not. Wait, this is taking so long. That's way too long, I think. Oh, that's the prospecting. Didn't I do that? No, I didn't. How do you call that? Oh wait, if I want to make that clickable, I need to move the ID to 5. And the first data is the worker ID, then worker position, and then the item that we created. The outcome should not be null, but just to make sure. Oh wait, in the notification this is using the current profession, but it could be that we change the profession later, so I have to add this information as well. So it's saving the current profession. Okay, let's test this. Oh, I didn't even add the notification to this list here. It's finished. So this is only working if it's one of those. So we need some parts for that. And now we can forge the copper sword. You can also see the possible outcome of the weapon. And you can put a special part into the craft recipe, but that's optional. So that will increase the outcome. Let's test this. So that's also inside here. And those, it's picking the best one. You can also make it not pick any. So without the special part, it's almost 50-50 DNC, and with the special part, it's more like, it's most likely going to be a C, but could also be a B. And this is also taking the workplace level and the worker level into account in the calculation. If I start it, then we see the forge progress. And as soon as that's finished, the new notification should appear. And we should also be able to move there from anywhere from the map. It's funny if I don't see such small patches of biomes very often. Okay, Smith finished. Now in the notification it says the bladesmith Abby has created a B copper sword. So we actually managed to make it a B, no products available. Yeah, because we're in debug mode. Okay, nice. So that's solved. Let's see if I have it in the list here. Smithing done. This can go away. Old village discovered, dungeon discovered. Yeah, I didn't do those. Maybe I will do them now. But the to-do item here is done, which is nice. So I'm now back at 350 to-do list items. And a few days ago I was at 400. So only a few task related things. And maybe I put a timer here. Wait, we don't need to do enemy search. There are no enemies anymore in the world, in the overworld. So this is not needed. This is also not needed. We don't pick up weapons. We don't let squad members equip weapons automatically. We do that on purpose, like actively. The player has to decide who gets which item. A few years ago, it was like similar to Dwarf Fortress, where the squad members would try to find the best item they can get hold of. But now I changed that because it was too random. Because in the game it's very important what equipment you use to be successful. So I don't want the player to be annoyed by the squad picking up stuff the player does not want them to pick up. Okay, and here I do timing. I don't check for items every frame, because that can be quite expensive depending on how many items are on the map, because I look at all of them in one call. So it's only done once every 3 seconds per squad member, and that's enough. That's fine. So another to-do list item. Some of them actually involve me doing something, some of them only are still in the code or in the list because I forget to remove them, but this problem has been solved already by me. So here I thought about when a stonebreaker breaks rocks in the overworld, I maybe also want to drop ores sometimes. But I'm not sure about that. But if I solve this, I can solve another one, which I postponed a few times yet. Inside of the chunks, each chunk has their own mineral abundance being randomly generated. And right now I cannot sample from the abundance easily because it's, yeah, actually it's not that hard to do, but I don't know why I don't do it as often. There's this method called sample minerals. Maybe I will another version of that. By calling sample minerals. This will fill the static int set. Ah, that's why I didn't want to do that all the time, because this is doing some memory allocation, or at least I'm not sure if it's doing memory allocation. Oh no, it's not. It's just clearing the int set. So that's no problem because it's not that big. So I can do that. So then I iterate. Wait, no, that's... Maybe I do it differently. I don't like that. I will copy this and do it on my own. I go through all of the different things. But I will not call this, but a static int array. So this will not do any loops, it will just set the size to 0. Then, depending on how often this mineral appears in the grid of the chunk, I will add it multiple times. Let's make this array typed. And then we return a random value. And if it's empty, it will return null. And I can deal with that from the position I call this. So now I can actually when we break a rock from this chunk, maybe let's distinguish between rocks and minerals. Okay, nice. I can do this distinction easily by saying it's not a rock, but a mineral. I will add it to the minerals list because I don't want to randomly drop rocks from mining in the overworld, since we already, like the guy mining the stone is only dropping a rock because we don't have minerals placed in the overworld. But by doing these random drops, I will still have a few minerals in the overworld. Let's say every 20 time. Oh, I don't even have the chunk. I have to get the chunk. Okay. And now I can use this for quests. I can now create a quest later that says find minerals by breaking overworld rocks. I wanted to do that before and I couldn't. So I don't have to put this another to-do list item here if I have one in the quest list. But let's test this. Will this? Yeah, items that are placed on the world are unlocked. That makes sense. Like before the first time you find an item, it's not displayed in the inventory. Like also like in the inventories you can do, for example, tell the villagers to move items from one building to another one. And here I do not display all the items that are in the game. I only show the ones that have been seen yet. So the player is not overwhelmed by the amount of items in the early game. Because why would you want to set up a item movement route if for an item you don't possess yet and have never seen before? And there's also a setting in the building. In each building you can allow or disallow certain items, and here I also don't show all the items in the game. I only show the ones we know of yet. So when a new item is dropped, regardless how it came into the world, it will be unlocked. So then it will appear in the inventories, because otherwise you would not be able to pick it up, because you have to tell any building to allow it to be picked up. Like rocks are always allowed by default in the quarry, for example, and log, a wooden log is also allowed in the woodcutter's hut, and so on. Like the obvious stuff is turned on by default, but the player is actually able to manipulate all the restrictions in every building. But before testing that, I will do another small break, so be right back. So now I need a new map. Maybe I will not go through the scenario, starting scenario. We'll just generate maps until I find one with rocks, like here. Okay, let's place a quarry. Or just wait until we finally get one. Okay, now. So that dropped a mineral. Okay, so it works, it seems. Maybe I changed this method. So does this work? If this is false, this must also be false. If this is true, it will only pick the rocks. So that's not the one I want. I don't want to do a mask for rocks. I want to do not allow rocks and like this. So now it should only drop rocks here, but in the tunnel. When we dig the tunnel, we also want to drop rocks from the chunk and not only the granite, because granite might not even be on that chunk. should be somewhat realistic. Ah, nice. Okay, I can define dot progress. So technically I could make it even more realistic, because the start and the end of the tunnel can be at arbitrary distance, so there can be multiple chunks between them, and I'm only sampling the start and the end chunk. But at least now it's returning real world minerals and rocks. But depending on the length of the tunnel, it might be that in the middle of the tunnel it would actually be different minerals, but I'm not going to do this. It would be a bit more. Okay. Oh, I'm taking the same one. It would be a bit more difficult to do the whole interpolation between start and end chunk, and maybe not all chunks in the path between start and end have been created, so the ones that the start and the end building are on, they of course have to be created, otherwise there wouldn't be a start or end building. So I can count on them being there, but the ones in between may not be there. Like, it depends on how the player is exploring the world. There could be a gap of chunks in between. But now it's at least somewhat realistic, so you could like notice, oh, we are getting this and this mineral and rock from the digging process, and then look at the chunk and see, oh, those are actually the ones I can find here. And it's not just granite yet, like it used to before. Like, you would see granite in the tunnel building, and then look at the chunk and there's no granite. So I didn't solve this one when we remove the tunnel entrance, which is a building. Like, when we mark to remove it, then what happens to the tunnel? Because there's still the end building. Maybe I should prevent that, but you cannot delete tunnels right now. So for now I'm going to say well, at least let's see, because now I'm in the building class and not in the subclass. I would have to cast here, and I hate that. I'm not sure what to do, but I don't have to do casting. I can also look at the type, which is just an enum. Then I could cast, because this will not fail. So here it's going to say worker is busy, which in that case is wrong. So either I return a error message from this instead of a boolean, and if the error message is empty, I treat it as true. Or I leave it as is. I'm not sure yet. I check for the when the player tries to remove a building in the game, I check for all the employees in the building and see if they can be fired right now, and some prevent being fired if they do something very important, like tasks that involve cleanup of the data. I don't want to abort these tasks, I just want them to happen normally, and then if the task is over, the player can actively unemploy the guy and then remove the building. But I don't want to do the cleanup when the task is going on, because that's annoying to do. So at least the tunnel can now not be removed. And tunnel entrances can be the entrance to up to 3 tunnels. So if we have at least 1 tunnel, we cannot remove the tunnel anymore, since tunnels can also be not removed, which is kind of how it is in the real world. Like you can, of course, put back in rocks into the tunnel, so it kind of never happened. But you still drilled through the mountain and change the integrity of the rock and stuff. In the game right now you cannot remove tunnels. Maybe I will do that one day, not sure. I can see how it's important to be able to remove buildings because they take up space on the world, and maybe you want to rebuild your village after some time. But the tunnels only they are not visible, they're only logical. Like the only thing that is visible from the tunnel is the tunnel entrance building on both ends. And yes, right now you cannot remove them after you create at least one tunnel in them, but that's just how it is now. Wait, I don't do the notification. That could possibly happen. Or could it? I'm not sure. Like if I send one villager from one village to another one, the other village only exists because a squad managed to get there before. So, and since the walkability of the map is not changing, it should actually never happen that this path cannot be found, so I don't need to do. Like this is the old news system, which has been changed last year to the notification system. So I used to have this failed message, but I think I don't need to do that, I think. And even if it would be possible that they fail to go there, then they will just stop doing that and still be part of their old village and not be lost in between two villages, like not knowing who they are member of now. But this, I just don't send a notification because it will never happen. But if it would happen, nothing bad happens. Like I catch it, But at least it's not on the to-do list anymore. Right, I checked. I did that already, so I can remove that. I don't think this is buggy anymore. I think I fixed that. I want to have a will I do the notification for the book? After I so maybe I should do the reading notification first and just send a fake number, the old number increased by 1, and then do the learning, because inside of the learning this one will be called and this will send a notification if the villager is now perfect in that skill, and I want to send this notification after I sent the one that the guy read the book. So in the text this is saying, yeah, he read a book and improved his knowledge, and then we learn, and then we check if he's legendary now, and the same happens when we practice. We check legendary, so we send notification that the guy learned something by doing it. And then we check for legendary. Okay, nice. So level 5 is max value. And then I need a notification for that. Skill. I already have the notification. I never called it. Nice. But I need to know the worker here. And what information do I expect here? ID of villager, and then profession. Oh, that's his current profession. But I mean the skill. I mean the skill, not the profession. So I don't want to show the profession here. I want to show the skill. Because not all skills have professions. But then I need to change the phrasing because not all skill names work with this grammar. They say is now a master, and then comes the skill is now a master. Maybe I should phrase it differently. Let's say it like that. And then the name. And I need to replace the white spaces because they break the inline color change I have in my text display system. Because the color changes back to the original color when it hits a white space, and I want to color the whole name, so I have to put a superscript 2, and my text rendering will just display this as a white space, but the text coloring will treat it as a non-white space, so it will keep the text color. That's a nice cheat because I never use the superscript 2. Cannot see that. Let me move that. I can never use this character anywhere in the game. So it's a placeholder for a white space character that is visible in the editor, but not in the game. So I need the worker ID and the skill ID. Wait, that's... And then... Wait. So now I found all the white spaces with a macro. Let's test the notification. It means I have to find a villager that is already perfect, almost perfect in a skill, so only book reading makes him more perfect. Or makes him perfect. Best labor skill. Okay, this one is almost perfect. Maybe I will just let a few migrants arrive. And then now try to find one again. That is perfect. This guy, he needs to read the last farming book, or the last 2 farming books, then he will be perfect. So let's make him do that. This is the farming book. We don't. Why can't this guy read the book? Ah, because we don't have it yet. If I enter this menu many times, books will be randomly added because I'm in debug mode. So I can test it. So now we have all the farming books, which means we can tell this guy to read the farming book. Wait, now I thought about another bug. Okay, that's no bug. There's no bug. I thought, like, in the game, some processes show this progress bars. A building can only show up to 3 progress bars at the same time, because a building can also have only up to 3 workers. That's why I put the limit. But now I noticed that in the library, actually more than 3 people can read a book at the same time. Then I suspected that it would crash, but if we try to add a new progress bar, we only try to do it 3 times. We look at the 3 slots, and if none of them is free, like there's already if there's the same one in the slot, we know him and update it, update the progress data. And if it's empty, we say that we found a vacant position, and else it will just not do anything, so it will not crash, it will just not display the progress. But as soon as the 4th guy leaves, then all of the 3 will be displayed again. So that the guy just read book and we get the notification, but he's not mastered yet the skill. And now we tell him to again read a book. And as soon as he does that, should now be master. Nice. So now it's so both the it's also shown in the best labor skill now, like both the knowledge and the practice is the max level, so the total level is also max level. And the other ones, like this one is also close. This one is already master, has the most knowledge of the job. Okay, nice. So that worked. That's nice. Let's rename that, because in the game it's called mastered. Okay. Those icons I need to create sprites for. Okay, let me quickly add a lookup table here. So int map is, the keys are ints. Yeah, that's what I want. And the that was easy. So since all buildings in the game do have these levels I talked about, so the level does improve the quality of the building, and the hospital is the only building that right now does not have any, like it has more beds when you improve it, but the beds are only used for sleeping, not for healing right now, because when villagers are a member of a squad and they get wounded in a squad fight in the dungeon, then they will not use the hospital right now because it does not have any functionality. I think I will soon, when I start working on dungeons again and I need the healing code to work, then I will add a menu to the hospital which let the player decide what healing item to use on which villager, and then it will benefit from the quality of the hospital. You could also use the healing items from the inventory of the squad, but then you will not have the quality upgrade, the quality boost from the hospital. So this makes sure that there is a reason to have a hospital in the game, but not in the game, but to, as a player playing the game, to place a hospital. Right now there is no reason to do that, but adding this will create a reason. A similar thing is the dining hall. I use, like, the dining hall is still in the game, but you right now cannot use it because it's not part of the research system or the research tree. It's not in there, so it's technically in the game, and if I cheat I could place it. Well, I don't even think I can place it. I'm not going to test that. I just want to tell about the dining hall. The dining hall also, I just added that because many building games do have dining halls, and at the beginning I was just copying other building games, but just recently I noticed, like, there is no game design reason for the dining hall to exist. Like, it does have a quality level, and I thought about, like, if somebody eats from that building they will receive more calories from the food, but that would change the balancing of the food. That would mess up with the balancing of the food. Like, I could still add it back in if I decide to, but right now it's gone. Because I think it just would be too overpowered. I don't know how to make it not overpowered. If it's giving more calories, then all foods will be overpowered. Because there's 6 levels. Each building can have 6 quality levels, and if I increment the calories at least by 1 for each level, then every food will be overpowered. So that's why I'm not planning to have it in the game. So it's not also there's nobody's working in the dining hall. Nothing interesting is happening inside it, only people are eating there. So why not just get rid of it? So I'm thinking about how much should I reduce the to-do list before I start working on dungeons. Like right now I'm at 350, and maybe 300 is a nice threshold. Like solve as many items until I've reached 300 items, and then start working on dungeons again. And you can see that this directory, which is called foreign, this is containing all the dungeon stuff. So many items, like this is 65 to-do list items only alone for mostly dungeons and dungeon fights and dungeon. And then there's also inside of the menu folder. In total I have 155 there. If you look at it, all of those have to do with dungeon stuff. So a big portion of the menu to-do list items are from dungeons. So I'm slowly getting to a point where all of the to-do list items are dungeon stuff, and then it's good to work on dungeons, I think. Because right now dungeons don't work properly, so they break the gameplay loop. If you reach the dungeon gameplay, you will be stuck because you cannot progress. So as soon as I finish the dungeons, the game is finished, or at least playable. Let's not call it finished. At least the gameplay loop is then hopefully closed, and then I have to make sure I don't have massive bugs and it's fun and balanced to some degree, and then it's finished. But at least my first goal is to, like my current goal is get rid of as many to-do list items as I can in the next few weeks, and then decide at one point start working on dungeons again. Then make the dungeons work to a degree that the gameplay loop is closed, and then I can playtest more and more until the game is done. And of course in the overworld not everything is done yet. I need to add more animals, I need to add more quests, I need to fix bugs. But almost all overworld menus are polished now, so I will not touch most of them even until release. They feel polished to my taste. But it also took me 2 years now to work on all the menus in the overworld, I think. Almost 2 years. I didn't work on it all the time, but I had many weeks last year where I wasn't in the mood of working. But this month has been very productive. So let me think about a few last things to do before I stop streaming. Like I want to reach 4 hours today. That's a good length. Let me look at the tasks. Actually, I don't need to rearrange the IDs, it's fine. I'm not going to add any more tasks, I guess. Most of the stuff in the overworld is done. I could close the gaps between these IDs, but there's no reason to do that. As long as there are no duplicate IDs for any two items, it's working. Because I used to delete a few tasks, that's why those gaps appeared. I had a few more tasks, but some of them got resolved by doing it a bit more generically, so I could implement multiple tasks inside of one. That's why some of them were removed. For example, this is the walking task, that's very generic. That is called whenever somebody walks from A to B. And I also used to have a follow task, which was in the game when I used to have overworld fighting. Then I wanted my squad members to follow a certain enemy. But as I started removing the overworld fighting, I also removed the task to follow because it's not needed anymore. And so on. But I think I will leave it as is, because who cares about what actual number there is? They just need to be unique. It seems they are unique, so I don't care anymore. This is a factory creating the tasks. And this is very old, this system. Like, I wrote this in 2015. And today I wouldn't do it this way, but I'm also not going to change it because it works, and doing a rewrite would probably take multiple weeks because I would have to edit every one of those classes. I'm not going to touch that. But today I wouldn't do it as a factory. I don't like that. Today I would just make it data oriented instead of object oriented. Like, every task is a class right now, and we inherit from a superclass, so that it's very object oriented. But at least there's not a big hierarchy. It's just two layers. The uppermost task, and then there's another layer where all the tasks are flat laid out. But I didn't go into the rabbit hole of object-oriented programming here, and it does make some sense because all of these tasks do different things, but some similar things. But today I would probably implement it as an enum, just data, no more task, no more classes and instancing and stuff, which would result in more spaghetti code, I guess, or in many switch cases where I switch for the task type and do the updating and the initializing and stuff. So that's how I implemented, for example, the dialog system. I don't load the dialogues from file because I'm not planning to do localization, because I don't have the funds for that. So if you plan to do localization, it would of course be critical to load all the text from files so you can replace the file with another language. But since I'm not going to do that, I just implemented all the dialogues inside of a big enum. So when we, for example, look at the text of the dialogue, I have a method for that. So I have a big switch statement for every type of dialogue and return the dialogue as a string. So maybe that's not the best way to implement, but it works. But I should stop rambling about my code at least do something useful in the last few minutes of the stream. What did I want to test here? Ah, okay. I wanted to test dungeon restrooms, but I don't have dungeons yet. I could test this actually. But I'm not going to, because I'm going to do that when dungeons are due. Wait, don't I have icons here? I could here return instruction. Oh, not by ID. I'm not sure if how big are the icons for the buildings, because I'm scaling them down a bit. They are 20 by 20, and here when I use this icon I scale it down to 16 by 16, so it's I most of the time don't scale the pixel art, but sometimes I do in some very rare cases like this. Because here I'm generically like this, all of these branches of the researching system have different types of data in them. Like some do unlock crafting recipes, some do smithing recipes, some do unlock like flags that unlock gameplay stuff, and then there are the structures. So you have to have images for each of those to display in the research menu when I show all the research branches. So let's try to look at that, how it looks in the game. C is the correct button. So after talking to the villager, to the researcher, I must place the research structure. I don't have a builder. I don't have any categories for the research system. Okay, shit. Wait, why do both of them crash? Wait. I should do that afterwards. Because if I have to initialize the cards first before I can change a page. That's it, I think. Okay. Okay, I think I will call it a day now. I didn't work on a big thing today, but I resolved a few to-do list items, which is nice. That's the plan. So thank you for watching if you have been in the live stream, and see you next time. Probably tomorrow, I'm not sure. Right now I'm streaming every day because I'm in the mood of streaming so often, but that could change daily depending on what I have to do at work or how certain circumstances will happen. So see you next time. Bye.